salve. Bisogna usare il microfono? No. L'ho copiata, credo. Aspetta che controllo se l'avevo copiato. Credo, Sì, l'ho copiato sul desktop. Eccola qui, Open Day March. Allora, e questo non mi dia. Shall we start?
Possiamo attivare il microfono.
Sì. No, è attivato, mi sentite? Tutti chiari? Okay. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I will try to provide you a quick overview of the general characteristics of the center, the general features, particularly with respect to research, and then my colleagues will provide you with more detail about the teaching activities of the center. So what is the CIMeC, the Center for Mind-Brain Sciences? It was started quite recently in March 2007, and the aims of the center is to investigate the functioning of the brain from both physiological and pathological perspective. And obviously, apart from research, the aim is also to educate the next generation of interdisciplinary research in neurosciences. The center is an interdisciplinary center incorporating faculty from different departments of the University of Trento: psychology, physics, mathematics, computer science, and philosophy, particular philosophy of mind. And there are also biologists and other people working at the center. And the center is a multicultural center. You can see we are about 140 now, with 36 principal investigators, about 46 postdocs and people working on temporary basis, about 40 PhD students, and about 22 people who are part of the administrative staff and technicians. More than 1/2 of the fellows are from abroad. You can see here some representative countries, and about 1/3 of the principal investigator, that is the faculty of the centers, are from abroad. I will describe briefly the structure and the laboratories of the center and therefore the research activity which is carried out at the center. So the organization of the center has, so to speak, core business, which is associated with human neuroimaging. This is located geographically not in Rovereto, but in Mattarello, which is south of Trento, sort of midline between Rovereto and Trento. And in these labs, the neuroimaging labs, we have a scanner, a 4 Tesla scanner, a MEG, a magnetoelectroencephalographic setup, and several other setups to study the brain, like the TMS, the eye tracking, and other paraphernalia of human cognitive neurosciences. Then in Rovereto, we have the EPL labs, the experimental psychology and psychophysics labs. Again, several types of equipment are used mainly to study the behavior of human subjects. So we have EEG, electroencephalographic procedures, eye tracking lab, kinematics, multisensory lab, and psychophysics labs. Then we have some colleagues working in the area of computational linguistics. This is the CLIC lab. They are interested in particular in the study of semantic and encyclopedic knowledge in communication and the study of adaptive interfaces, and they are obviously interested in the relationship between this semantic and knowledge and what is happening in the brain. So they collaborate with people that make use of neuroimaging techniques. Then we have the people working on the more wet part of the center, the more biological part, the ACN group that work with animal models. We have a variety of animal models available, from rodents to insects to birds, and we look at the behavior of these subjects and also to the neurobiology with classical techniques like histology, microscopy, and so on. Then we have the more clinical part of the center. The center is interested both in the normal physiological functioning of the brain, but also in the pathological conditions. And so we have a Center for Neurocognitive Rehabilitation, so-called CERIN, and there are about 200 people, patients, that are under treatment each year at the CERIN. And the aim of the center, of the CERIN, is to understand the clinical nature and the neurological basis of cognitive disorders caused by brain damage. There are then a few labs that are run together with other important research centers in the provincia, which are not part of the university, but are research center directly funded by the provincia. One is the 2 labs run in collaboration jointly with the Fondazione Bruno Kessler, FBK, a neuroinformatics lab and computational cognition labs. These are labs mainly devoted to the integration of computer science, neuroimaging, and also devoted to have systems and services supporting people with cognitive disabilities. So these labs work in strict interaction with the CERIN. Another joint lab is the INN lab, which is a lab run together with the Fondazione Edmund Mack. Edmund Mack Foundation is a research center in the provincia, mainly devoted to investigation of biological and agricultural research. These people are interested, for instance, in studying the nervous system of insects that are pests and are important for agricultural crops. So in these labs, we investigate using, for instance, 2-photon microscopy, the activities of neurons in the brain of these teeny animals like honeybees or bumblebees and so on. Finally, we have field station about 3 kilometers from Rovereto. And this is the Ethology and Evolutionary Biology Lab. Is in a nice and peaceful area called Sperimentaria, where animals could be studied and observed in completely natural conditions. There are also some labs for fish and bees research with some hives and also some aviaries. An important collaboration from the point of view of research of the CIMeC, the center, is with the Istituto Italiano di Tecnologia, the Italian Institute of Technology. This is a major research center based on Genoa, but the IIT also has a satellite which has been located in different universities. And one of the universities which has been selected for this collaboration is the University of Trento. So we host a Center for Neuroscience and Cognitive Systems. These are colleagues of IIT who are mainly interested in the use of neuroimaging techniques for investigation of, and psychophysics, for investigation of human cognitive processes, and also they have another scanner, another fMRI machine for investigation of small animals. In particular, they are working with mice and other models of prominent diseases like autism, schizophrenia, and so on. I do not discuss the educational part of the center because my colleagues will cover the master and the PhD activity of the center. Just to mention, obviously this is quite boring for you, but the CIMeC has been very good in this year in making research, as it can be shown from the number of publications and the number of citations. But I want just to mention one aspect that you could easily grasp. I think that the main agency for funding of science in Europe now is the ERC, the European Research Council, and and we have been able to be awarded more than 8 million euros for research at the center. And just to give you an idea, consider that more than 1/2 of these ERC grants have been obtained at the CIMeC with respect to the overall number which has been awarded to the University of Trento. So we have been quite successful in obtaining grant for research, but we are also interested in collaborating with the other colleagues all over the world. And this is done both with workshop, specialized workshop that convey in Rovereto research from all over the world in the area which are of interest for the center, namely perception, attention, multisensory perception, animal cognition, and obviously human neuroimaging. And apart from this specialized workshop, we also try to develop communication for the general public in Rovereto and in Trento, and we have several activities. One is the Science Café, typically in the spring, which are very successful activity. Other activity, more formal, a series of conference called Neuroscience and Society, with the presence of quite prominent science writer like, for instance, Piero Angela. And also very important, the activities in collaboration with the local Museum of Art, the MART, just in front of this building in the area associated with visual perception and art and the brain. And finally, we also have an ethology day every year at the end of spring, in which the children of the town are allowed to visit the labs and to see the animal and to interact and to learn something about the natural behavior of animals in a natural environment, sometimes also in bad weather, as you can see. Yes, I forgot another activity important is the participation together with the CBio, the Center for Molecular Biology, to the Olympics of Neurosciences, which are an event for the students of the secondary school to promote the knowledge of neurosciences in the school. Just a mention about the future, right? As I said, we are at present geographically located in different places. Part of the labs are in Mattarello, close to Trento. Parts are here in Rovereto, in different parts in Rovereto. But we hope, hopefully in a very short time, to be able to have a unique and unitary location for all this. The CIMeC, that is expected to be Manifattura, which is in the south of Rovereto, and we will have 3 large buildings dedicated to the center, one for the biological part together with the IIT, this big building, another one for the neuroimaging, so moving the scanner and the other labs from Mattarello to Rovereto, and another one for the clinical part. So thank you very much for your attention. I apologize in advance. I will be not able to stay with you because of other duty today, but my colleague will provide you all the information, particularly the one associated with the teaching activities of the center. Thank you.
So welcome, everyone. Thank you for coming. And as you've seen, we have a series of presentations, for example, the one you just saw from the director of the center to give you some overview of the research opportunities here. But of course, one of the main reasons why you're here is to have the opportunity to interact with the students, current students, and faculty here so that we can answer your questions and we can give you an idea of what it would be like to study here at the master's or PhD level. So I encourage you, as you're watching, to think of questions that you'll have for us. Right after this set of presentations, we will have a reception, and all of us will be available there to answer your questions and hopefully have a chance to meet you during the day. I'm David Melcher, and I'm going to talk briefly about the master's program. So I just want to point out a few things that we think are very important about the master's program, and then later today we have a chance to talk about some more details. So specifically, when talking about the master's, today I want to talk a bit about the way in which our master's integrates research and teaching. So there are a lot of materials online you can read about the specifics, but just to emphasize the teaching and research aspect and how they fit together. So in terms of teaching, we have 2 tracks, as you've seen in the materials, one based on cognitive neuroscience, one based on language and multimodal interactions. And the idea of teaching, particularly from the cognitive neuroscience track, is to provide theories and methods in the cognitive and brain sciences. And the idea is that we talk about what are the ideas, and just particularly given that people come from a diverse background, try to talk about what's exciting about what's going on in the mind and brain sciences now, but we also emphasize teaching of methods. In other words, rather than sitting there, as we're all doing now, and listening to someone talk, the idea is that you're here to do research and to learn through doing, as opposed to the lecturing style that you've mainly had as a bachelor student. So we cover some of the basics of cognition, just because people come from a diverse background, and try to bring everyone up to date with what's going on now in terms of cognitive psychology, cognitive neuroscience, study of language, memory, perception, the mind, thinking, and so on. We have courses and hands-on courses in neuroscience and in neuroimaging, and the idea there is to understand, we've all seen or in some cases even made the pretty pictures that you see in the newspaper with areas of the brain in different colors, and the question is, why do we do that, and how do we do those kinds of experiments? Computational methods. The cognitive and brain sciences are becoming more and more a field where the traditional cognitive psychology and neuroscience interact with computational disciplines, engineering, computer science, and so on. Then research methods is an important aspect of science. So the reason why science is so exciting and interesting to all of us is there's the chance that today you could wake up with a great idea that no one else maybe has thought of before, and what we try to do is give you the tools to take that idea and create experiments or models that then you can use to test that idea, and so that's one of the things that is a focus of the teaching. And as I said, the focus is to get you in the labs as soon as possible, and classes involve hands-on training, but also people are encouraged to quickly start spending time with the research groups in doing their own projects. So that's the teaching part. In addition, as I said, the teaching and the research go together, and one of the things which I think is quite exceptional about our masters is the high quality of the theses which are produced by the students, many of which are submitted for publication and are presented at conferences. Here are some examples, and we really encourage people to become a professional as soon as possible. No longer just someone who reads about studies, but someone who creates new scientific knowledge, presents that at conferences, presents that to the other students and faculty here, and so on. And as you've seen from all of the slides before, we have really amazing research facilities, and they're not just there for you not to admire, but they're there for you to use. Another aspect which is very important to us is the way in which this master's is useful to you. And the idea is that we want to prepare you for careers in academia, industry, education, medicine, and so on. And so far we've been very successful. So in the last survey, about 90% of people who've done the master's are working in one of those areas. In terms of doctoral schools, we've sent master students to the best doctoral schools in the field from all over the world. In addition, others have decided to go directly into healthcare or software design, robotics design, designing of equipment. These sorts of things are also an important aspect of the master's, and so we're trying to also, of course, teach practical, useful information. Yes? In education? Okay, so, well, in terms of studying cognitive systems development, there's sort of, you can view different aspects. One is how do people learn? So if you understand how people develop cognitively and how they best learn, then that can be used to design better courses. And then also in terms of learning disabilities and people who have difficulties in learning, obviously the cognitive and brain sciences focus a lot on those problems. So I mention education because some people, for example, are able to come from an education background, do a master's, and return to doing education. Other people have done research projects having to do with schools or with, for example, the experience of children with learning disabilities and things like that. So we certainly like to have the theoretical part, but the applied part is an important aspect as well. And for the thesis project, for example, in some cases, people collaborate more with these educational aspects. So there are a few things that make the master's fairly unique, one of which is the diverse and international teaching faculty. So I just took a quick list from a recent email that I sent to the people teaching next year. You can imagine how easy it was to organize a meeting with this many people. Just to point out two things which, given my experience seeing master's programs elsewhere in Europe and in the US, first of all, there are a lot of us who you would be exposed to who all give you some sort of idea about what we're interested in. So it's not one of those masters where there's really just 2 or 3 people doing all of the teaching. In addition, you may notice just from looking at the names that there's a wide diversity in backgrounds, and that means that we've done our undergraduates and PhDs and research all over the world, and so we bring that breadth of perspective to our teaching. A second thing which makes us unique, again, is that, as I mentioned before, it's not just to have you sit there and listen to lectures. The idea is to get you as soon as possible in the labs doing research. And so what we call classes a lot of times really are laboratories or training to help you to do research. And finally, the thing which makes us unique, I think, is people like you, which is that we have a diverse and international group of students coming from different backgrounds, engineering, philosophy, physics, computer science, lots of other fields, and so not just psychology or neuroscience. And that is a challenge for us because we might start a class and some people will have already written perhaps their undergraduate thesis on memory, and other people think memory is something that you buy lots of to stick into your computer. And we have to engage all of you and provide lectures that work for everyone. But I think that's also exciting, and I think for the students as well, the chance to see people from different backgrounds and to learn something new, whatever background you're from, is exciting. So next, my colleague Marco Baroni will talk specifically about the language and multimodal interaction track.
Okay, so hi everybody, I am Marco Baroni. I'm here as the coordinator of the language and multimodal interaction track of our master. The idea of this track is to have to give a preparation which has a bit of a stronger emphasis on the computational aspects of cognitive neuroscience. We are in very exciting times in which we are having like a lot of progress in understanding how the mind works, how the brain works, but at the same time also a lot of technological progress with things like the web really changing the way we live, the way we interact with each other. And of course there are many connections between these two aspects, the understanding the human mind and working with machines, because it is becoming a very concrete perspective to design and develop machines that are human-like in important respects. So, say, not so far away in the future, we can envision search engines where you don't have just to type keywords, but you can actually ask a real question, like you would ask a friend, or where you can use images to interact instead of just words. And this is exactly the kind of topics that the researchers that teach in our track of the master focus on, and the kind of problems that you will learn about if you study in our, if you study in the track. The students that choose language and multimodal interaction do take a fair number of classes together with the students in the cognitive neuroscience track, so they learn about the foundations of cognitive science, of neuroscience, of neuroimaging, and so on and so forth. But then they also take courses in topics such as artificial intelligence, computer vision, computational linguistics, and so they develop a very interdisciplinary kind of background, which then can lead both to further studies in PhD programs that might be in cognitive science, but also maybe in computer science, or also the possibility of working for high-tech companies that are nowadays investing quite a lot in human-like technologies. And I guess a nice characteristic, so many of the aspects that David mentioned for the master in general are also true of our track, so the heavy hands-on aspects and really doing research together rather than having a strong division between the persons who teach and those that who learn. And also a characteristic of our track, which I think is very nice, is also the people who come tend to come from a very mixed background. So we had computer scientists that now are enrolled in doctoral programs in neuroscience. We had the people that studied psychology or neuroscience that in their bachelor degree, and that now through our track switch to a more like artificial intelligence or computer science kind of program. And so I guess one aspect of our track, which I think could be attractive for some of you, is this possibility of really a bit like looking around and acquiring a varied background, and then in this way also being able later, whether you study or you decide directly to go to work, to do something interesting, maybe more creative than what you could do with other more traditional backgrounds. And I guess that's all I have to say for now, but I'll stick around for the lunch meeting, so if you have questions, just ask them.
Okay, so for those of you who are interested also in the PhD, and this also of course applies to people who come here for the master that might see in the PhD here or somewhere else a possible continuation of your activity, my task today is to give you a quick overview of how we organize the PhD at CIMeC. So my name is Francesco Pavani and I coordinate the PhD program here at CIMeC. I'm not going to repeat many of the aspects that have been already emphasized for CIMeC and for the master, that is all the availability of technique, and the possibility of interacting with a truly international context here at CIMeC. Instead, what I'll try to emphasize is the way in which we think the PhD program should develop. This is something that I think poses some difficulties, because when you start a PhD, you are no longer a student in a sense, but you are still a student. So at the beginning of the PhD program, you're still a student, has to learn a number of important aspects about how you do research in that specific field and the competencies you must have in order to be able to become an independent scientist. At the same time, we strongly believe that when you start a PhD program, you are already a young scientist at the beginning of her or his career. So it's very important that you try and think of the PhD program as something that is already your first step into a possible science career. So sure, you're going to have a supervisor. For sure, the supervisor will have a great impact on what you do and the project that you're going to develop. That's typically how things are. However, we strongly invite you to consider this phase as a real different phase. It's not just being a student in, again, a training phase. It is something else. When you start a PhD program at CIMeC, every year you will be faced with possibility of choice among various topics. So for the 30th cycle, and we're going to publish the call for this cycle shortly, the topics will be animal cognition, computational neuroscience, development, language, learning and motivation, neuroimaging method and analysis, perception and action, thinking. There'll be a link on the web page that points to a more detailed page in which each of these topics is further detailed with specific examples of projects that are offered in these domains and specific example of potential supervisors that you can have if you choose a specific project. Now, this is the moment when you have to be an active researcher already in searching what these people do, but also search what are your true interests, what is your motivation, and what is the question that already is a bit in your mind. Every one of us has aspects of the human or animal behavior that intrigue us more than others. And it's time for you to really think about these aspects and see which are the one you really want to pursue. As I said, one way to introduce the school, the program, is to give you an overview of how we organize it. So the program is a 3 years program. I don't know if you can read it, it's a bit small, but I'll guide you through this. This is a very synthetic Gantt diagram that we organized to represent the activity that we do every year. So basically, what happens is that when you start the PhD program at CIMeC, you will have an advisor assigned, but also, and this is very important, we introduced this a couple of years ago and we noticed that it really works very well, you will have an oversight committee assigned. So a group of scientists, typically 3 people, 1 is the advisor and 2 of the people from the faculty, but can also include people outside the faculty, that will follow you throughout the PhD program. This is very important because sometimes it's very important to go beyond the interaction you had with your advisor and hear the voice of experts, even within the same center, that have seen your progresses through time and can actually tell you where things are going very well, where there might be problems, where you have overlooked some ideas. So it's this type of constant discussion is very important. And for this reason, we immediately assign an oversight committee. The other thing that happens at the very beginning is that the student and the advisor work on a study plan. Now, the problem of diversified background exists, of course, also in the PhD program. The difference is, however, that here we have some more margins for flexibility, and the way we organize the study plan is we carefully worked to identify what are the priorities for us that we think that every single student at CIMeC should, and the courses that every single student at CIMeC should follow. Now, these are not necessarily courses like sitting in a class, but can be things like active participation in the life of the center. Okay? So these kind of things also constitute part of your study plan. But of course, you may have arrived here with thinking that memory is that thing you buy in the shop, and so you need more competencies in the domain of psychology. And therefore, you can organize your study program in such a way that you get this knowledge that you need. Okay? Once all this is approved, then you basically enter into what is the main phase that is going to guide you throughout the PhD program, and that is your research project activities. You basically will be at CIMeC to run a research project. Your own research project. As I said before, for sure there'll be a great contribution from the supervisor, and some of these research projects actually are part of funded projects, so it's very important that you actually fully understand this. At the same time, you are the person that will have the project in the hands. And ideas are kind of a flexible and elaborate things that grows as you work with it and change and find new directions. There'll be training activities, and these will be the courses for which you organize your study plan. But of course, these training activities are lab meetings, workshop, colloquia, research seminar. I'll say more about colloquia and research seminar in a minute. But the point is, participating in the life of such an active center as CIMeC is one of the things that you must not miss in your PhD experience. Now, by the end of each year, you will be requested to prepare some report on what happened in each year. So the first year, this will be a report on the activity that you have done in the first year, and if possible, already a sketch of how the next 2 years will develop in terms of the project that you have been working on, you started to work on. The Oversight Committee will discuss this report with you, and then by the end of the year, what we call the IC Committee, that is a committee that will examine how was your activity during the year, will evaluate and will propose an admission to the second year or not. And then finally, the Doctoral Program Committee, which is the whole staff, will approve the decision. I'll move more quickly now. When you go into the second year, at the beginning, you will have another duty, which is very, very important. At the beginning of the second year, you will have to delineate the thesis project in details in front of the Oversight Committee, and you will receive feedback for that. In the meanwhile, you will continue with the research project activity, training activities, and by the end towards the end of the second year, you should be able, you must write an important theoretical review of the field you're working on. Effectively, this is already the introduction of your thesis. But although you surely have already, by this stage, developed your ideas on this aspect, it's very important that at a certain point you sit down and write clearly what you think about the theoretical foundation of your own project. And again, there'll be a discussion with the OC of this literature review, and there'll be the decision to admit or not to the third year. When it comes to the third year, at this point, you surely have developed your project to a large extent, and we ask you to provide evidence of the fact that you didn't just think of the project within yourself and your advisor and the oversight committee and the school, but your aim here is to make this project and the results of this project as widely available as possible too. So write them up and present them. Again, we provide feedback on all these activities, and by the end of the third year, you should have a good 4 months to write the thesis. Now, colloquia are what we consider the most prestigious seminars here at CIMeC. The logic is not just being prestigious, is that type of seminars that can leave seeds of ideas, even if they come from domains that are very different from the one that you're interested in. So you're interested in perception, well, come and listen to a distinguished senior scientist speaking about computational linguistics, because that's when your mind can open and you can find new direction for your own project. So this is the idea with which we think of colloquia. But of course, in addition to the colloquia, there are the research seminars. Very many research seminars characterize week activities at CIMeC, lab meetings and journal clubs of various groups at CIMeC, the workshops that have already been mentioned that are an amazing occasion to interact with international scientists locally here, a PhD day that we, in fact, the students primarily organize every year in September, October, and a regular weekly meeting that we call the brown bag meeting, because we do it at lunchtime, but it's a Friday CIMeC meeting in which we basically update everyone about what's happening at CIMeC. And I'll stop here. And importantly, so I'll also be around, and Lea Mercanti, who's the person who, the administrator for the CIMeC PhD program, will also be here to answer more organizers-related questions. Thank you.
Okay, my name is Katia Tentori. I'm a professor here at CIMeC, and I'm also the person in charge of the orientamento activities. And these two students are our students of our master program, Beatrice and Andrea, and they are working in the orientamento activities as well. This means that you can email me. You can find my email under the people link on our website, or you can email them or ask them during the lunchtime. They will be around, about questions about the admission, about the fellowships, about the quality of life in Rovereto, or the employment rate of our students, and so on. And you can ask them also questions that you don't want a professor to hear about. So question from student to a student, they will not report us the questions. So feel free to ask them any important question you think you want to ask. And let me say just a couple of things that I think are important. First of all, for the master program, we have two deadlines. One is at the end of March. The other one is around June, July. You have to look on our website. There are 40 positions overall. And so you need to apply, and there is a selection. And the selection criteria are your motivational letter, up to, I think, 30 points out of 100, your CV, your curriculum studies, studiorums, and also some recommendation letters of professors you have been working with in the past. And you need to know English. You need not to be perfect in English, but you need to be able to understand English, because all the lessons will be in English, the books will be in English, and so on. And we don't have limits in the sense that you can apply from each kind of previous Corso di Laurea. For example, you can be, you could have done 3 years in math, or in psychology, or in philosophy. This is why, because cognitive science is an interdisciplinary kind of research, okay? And of course, if you have done 3 years in math, maybe you don't know anything about psychology. So you will require to learn about psychology. We can help you at the very beginning of our master program to give you some books to talk to you and to help you to fill the gap, okay? And so on. If you come from psychology, maybe you're not trained in math or in logic and so on. So we will have some basic courses and you will be required also to fill the gap. And what else? An important thing is that at the end of the program, at the end of our master program, you will not be a psychologist. Okay, you will study a lot of psychology, but you will not be able to be a clinical psychologist. This has to be clear, okay? So our master is research-oriented, okay? So you will not be able to work in a hospital as a psychologist, okay? Unless you have also a master in psychology. Is this clear to everybody? Okay. And we have an impressive rate of students who can find unemployment within 2-3 months after their degree, okay, more than 90% of them. But also keep in mind that the great majority of them work as a PhD students. So they are trained to be a scientist and they found a job, okay, as a PhD student. Okay, so if is this what you are interested into, is a great track. But if you want to be a clinician, is not your track. So, okay. And there are a lot of fellowships at University of Trento, so you could be interested in these. You can ask them, okay, about these fellowships and other questions that I don't have in my mind now, okay? Okay. Do you want to add something? You will be around, right, during lunchtime? Okay, cool. You can ask questions here as well. To me or to them? To any of us. Yeah. No one? Questions? Maybe you are shy and you want to ask a question. We will be around. Okay.
Can you explain me a little bit about Can you explain me a little bit about the CISA program? What is the CISA program? What is the... I've read that there is a fellowship about the CISA program.
That's a good question. I ended up not adding the slide about funding. So we have an agreement with CISA in Trieste, and what happens is there's a separate application for that program, and there's a selection which is obviously made also by CISA, which students are involved. And the idea is that you would spend the first part of your master's here, doing classes and so on, and then you would do your research thesis with scientists at CISA. And so part of the fellowship, of course, includes the fact that you would need to be in Trieste in order to work there.
Thank you.
Okay, if there are no other questions, then there should be a reception just across the hallway, and hopefully all of us will be there. And thank you again for your attention, and see you in a few minutes.